Pulling up at the back entrance to the station, I thanked Officer Farley again and opened the door, feeling awkward with purse and bag as I climbed out of the car in the more pelting rain and battering winds. I saw the back door of the station open slightly and Charlie's head popped out, nodded at me and pulled back inside. "See you inside," I said to Officer Farley, closing the car door and hurrying to the building, where Charlie popped the door open far enough for me to squeeze through before letting it slam shut. "Damn, that's some serious wind there. You okay?" he asked me with some concern. I smiled, untying and pushing the windbreaker hood off my head. "Yeah, feeling a bit like Winnie the Pooh." "Huh?" Charlie's confusion was apparent, which made me laugh. "Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day?" One of my favorite stories when I was little. It would fit today. "Oh, gotcha," he said. "Right, definitely a blustery day. Your power go out?" "Nah, I'm downtown, so we rarely have any outages there." He nodded as we walked down the hallway. I appreciated the attempt at conversation. I was starting to feel the familiar nervous tension of dealing with another lens session. I might be generally more comfortable with what I was doing, although not necessarily why I was doing it. But each session was new, unique. There was always not a fear so much as a concern that something like what had happened the first time could happen again, or something else, something worse. Then I caught myself in mid-thought. Maybe nothing would happen. That would be the worst thing of all. I'd rather have the whole thing blow up rather than have nothing happen at all, because I really, really did not want to be doing this still, yet. And I didn't want to have to do it again after this test. If they didn't get what they needed from this test, they'd have to go on without me and the lens. I wasn't going to leave them the lens, but I definitely did not want to have to go through this again one more time. "You sleep okay? Feeling okay?" Charlie's questions caught me off guard and I stopped, considering. Yeah, I slept, as much as I usually do sleep. "I'm okay. I just want to get this over with. I don't want to do this again. No offense, but I can think of about a zillion things I would rather be doing right now, truthfully." He smiled. "I bet. I can think of a few things I'd rather be doing myself. No offense." I chuckled and nodded. "Let's just get this over with." "Right then, let's head back to the lab. Thorne's there. She's ready to prepare the specimen." I nodded. The specimen. I stopped my brain from considering all the ramifications of that word and watched the linoleum tiles pass under our feet as we made our way to the lab. Janet could hear voices and footsteps coming down the hall. She looked up and saw Officer Wilkins and Miss Campbell rather, heading towards the lab. Janet had had a significant change of heart towards Elise. Janet couldn't seem to stop calling her that in her head. Since that last test, since seeing a murder in full 3D detail had convinced Janet, as nothing else could have, of the validity of that device, and of Elise, Miss Campbell, that is. Janet checked the tissue sample once more, then the settings for the laser cut procedure. Elise's decision to let Janet retain the glass slides from the lens had made Janet's life much easier. She could now maintain the strict sterilization protocols required for protection of a specimen's secure integrity. She'd been waiting to complete the process so Elise could see exactly what was being done and how. Janet wasn't sure why she needed Elise to see this, except that it seemed important, somehow, as if having Elise know about the specimen integrity would make a difference. Janet frowned to herself. She wasn't used to having these kinds of errant thoughts and doubts when it came to her lab work. Her meticulous nature made her perfectly suited to her position, and she knew that. She never doubted her work or its results before. Janet shrugged and shook her head. There was no time for naval contemplation now. I could see Janet leaning over a computer monitor, papers spread before her, intently focused on what she was looking at on the screen. Charlie stopped just before the doorway, letting me go in front of him. I smiled over my shoulder at him, trying to look braver than I felt. "Hey there, good to see you. Come on over, I want to show you what we're working on here," Janet called towards the door, her gaze still fixed on the monitor. Not sure that I really wanted to see this, I walked obediently to Janet's side and tried to see what she was looking at on the monitor. This is the actual tissue sample being held in place here and ready for the laser cut, Janet said as she pointed to an image in the center of the screen. You can see the right side is touching one of your glass slides. That way, when the cut is made, that sliver will adhere to the slide, allowing the rest of the sample to be withdrawn without compromising the specimen itself. Where was this tissue sample taken from? Charlie asked from behind me. I hadn't even heard him walk in. I'd been so absorbed in what Janet was showing me. Right, good question, Janet answered. Thanks for reminding me. This sample was taken from the same victim as the bone sample we did the previous test on. We're hoping for a more complete picture of events that happened before the murder. So this sample was taken from the solar plexus muscle. Your brain sends signals during a traumatic event from the brain to the stomach down the vagus nerve. That's the nerve bundle that connects your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. We're hoping DNA memory information sequences will be concentrated, is I guess the best way to put it, in the muscle tissue where that nerve bundle terminates. Okay, I wasn't sure how much I was actually understanding of what she was explaining. Science had never been my strong suit in school, and I managed to get out of the mandatory frog dissection on religious grounds. So all of this specimen preparation discussion made me vaguely nauseous, not having anything to do with a panic or anxiety attack. This was genuine squeamishness. I didn't like blood, and I really didn't like thinking about cutting pieces out of eyes. All right, here we go then. Janet touched the screen again, and a flicker of movement appeared in the image, followed by the larger sample moving about a quarter inch to the left, away from the glass slide on the right. You can't really see the specimen on the slide on the monitor now because it's only 2 microns thick, literally just a fraction of a hair's width. But trust me, it's there. Now, we want the second glass slide. Janet pointed to a tray next to her as she walked over to a machine on an adjacent counter. Touching a button on the front, they watched as a small door slid open, revealing 1 glass slide inside a tiny aperture. Expertly putting on blue latex gloves, she carefully removed the specimen slide from the machine and picked up the other glass slide where she placed it on a sterile tray. So we just touched the edges of the 2 slides together like so, Janet continued as she slowly put the 2 slides together along one outer edge. And then we gently let the 2 faces come together. This allows any air pockets to be released. Don't want anything to interfere with the specimen. Janet looked up and smiled at me as she inserted the slides into their black bracket. There, all set. Ready to go? I nodded. There wasn't anything I could think of to say. Why don't you take these with you to the war room? I need to put the sample away. I'll be there in about 5 minutes. I took the slides from Janet's hand gingerly, holding them by their outer edges, then glanced back at Charlie, still standing behind me. Ready or not, I said to him. He nodded to me. See you in 5, he said to Janet as I followed him out the door.